There's a certain type of man who never starts a fight, but somehow he always ends up bleeding. Let me ask you something most people are too afraid to ask themselves. What if being nice has become your way of staying invisible? You say yes when you want to scream no. You smile when you're breaking inside. You hold your tongue to keep the peace. But what about your own war? Maybe you've noticed it. They don't really listen when you speak. They cancel on you without guilt. They take your kindness like it's owed, like it's weak. You're not being nice. You're being afraid. Afraid of conflict. Afraid of being disliked. Afraid of disappointing people who wouldn't hesitate to disappoint you. You think you're the good guy, but deep down you feel walked over, unseen, unchosen, unimportant. And here's the part that hurts the most. You train them to treat you this way, not with malice, but with your silence, with your inability to draw a line and say, no more. Sit in that for a second. Let the discomfort rise, because until you confront the role you've played in your own neglect, you will keep wondering why no one values you, and the answer will always be the same. You were trying to be liked instead of being real. But let's go deeper, because being nice isn't the real problem. The real problem is why you're being nice. Most people think kindness is a virtue, and it is. But when kindness becomes a shield, a performance, a survival strategy, it's no longer kindness, it's fear in costume. You learned early, maybe even in childhood, that love was conditional, that to be accepted, you had to shrink yourself, your anger, your wants, your truth. Maybe your father was volatile, and silence kept you safe. Maybe your mother needed you to be the good boy, so you became her emotional caretaker. Even when it hurt, you made people smile, so they wouldn't leave. You gave, so you wouldn't be abandoned. You pleased, so you wouldn't be punished. And then, like a script written into your nervous system, you carried that into adulthood, into friendships, into relationships, into work, always scanning the room, always adjusting, never causing waves. This niceness, it's not who you are, it's who you became to survive. But here's the paradox. The very thing that protected you then is destroying you now. Because people don't respect what doesn't respect itself. They sense the hesitation in your voice, the tension in your laugh, the way you agree too quickly, apologize too often, avoid eye contact when you should stand your ground. But here's the paradox. The very thing that protected you then is destroying you now. Because people don't respect what doesn't respect itself. They sense the hesitation in your voice, the tension in your laugh, the way you agree too quickly, apologize too often, avoid eye contact when you should stand your ground. It's not their fault. They're just following the rules you never dared to break. So let's shatter them. Here's the truth most people won't tell you. People don't respect nice. They respect boundaries. They respect presence. They respect the kind of man who looks them in the eye and says calmly, no. Not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. That's the shift. You don't need to become rude. You don't need to swing from passive to aggressive. That's just fear, wearing a different mask. The real strength, the grounded, masculine, magnetic strength comes from knowing where you stand and standing there, even if it makes others uncomfortable. When you stop needing everyone to like you, something powerful happens. You start attracting people who actually respect you, because suddenly your yes means something, because now when you speak, there's weight. Because your energy no longer says, please accept me. It says, I accept myself. And that's rare. That's real. But it doesn't come without cost. Some people will leave. Some will test you. Some will accuse you of changing. When in truth, you're finally showing who you were all along, beneath the people-pleasing. Let them. You don't owe anyone the watered-down version of yourself. You don't have to explain your healing to those who benefited from your silence. What you do owe to yourself is truth. Because at the core of all this isn't dominance or control. It's about reclaiming the parts of you that were exiled in the name of being liked. Your anger, your instincts, your decisiveness, your space. These are not flaws, they're signals, and when integrated, not repressed, they become power. So here's the new code. Be kind, but never at the expense of your boundaries. Be generous, but never to the point of self-erasure. Be humble, but never ashamed of your worth. Let people feel the edge in you, the line they cannot cross, the spine behind the smile. Because that's the paradox of respect. It doesn't come when you seek it. It comes when you stop chasing it and embody something unshakable: stillness, truth, strength. So next time you're in a conversation and feel that old reflex rise, the urge to soften, to agree, to laugh when it's not funny, pause. Feel your feet on the ground. Breathe into your belly. Ask yourself, am I being nice, or am I abandoning myself again? That question alone can change everything, because the world doesn't need another agreeable ghost. It needs men who've walked through their fear of rejection and come out the other side with fire in their eyes and peace in their hearts. There's a brutal truth that most nice people never want to admit, because admitting it would mean tearing down the entire identity they've built around being the one everyone likes. But I'll say it plainly, people don't respect you because you never gave them a reason to. Not because you're worthless, not because you don't matter, but because you never demanded that your presence be taken seriously. And the thing about humans, we're wired to test limits. Children push to see what they can get away with. Adults do the same, just in more subtle ways. Every time you say yes when you want to say no. Every time you let someone cut you off, interrupt, diminish. Every time you stay silent when you should speak. You teach them something. You teach them that your time is flexible, that your energy is disposable, that your needs are optional, and the world listens. Oh, it listens very closely. Because the world doesn't respond to who you are deep down. It responds to what you tolerate. It doesn't matter how kind, talented, or well-meaning you are. If you don't command your own space, if you don't assert your value, people will treat you like background noise, not out of cruelty, but out of instinct. And this is where the pain sharpens. Because when you're nice in that performative, approval-seeking way, you start to attract people who use that. Manipulators, emotional leeches, bosses who overwork you, partners who take and take and take until there's nothing left. And worse, you become resentful, not just of them, but of yourself. You start to hate the man in the mirror, the one who stayed quiet, who avoided conflict, who let it slide again and again until your spirit began to erode. You smile on the outside, but inside you're screaming, why doesn't anyone care about me the way I care about them? And here's the hard part. They probably never will, until you do. Because people mirror what you project. If you project self-abandonment, they reflect it back. If you project hesitation, they don't take you seriously. If you project that your boundaries are negotiable, they will negotiate them right out of existence. It means you can say, "I don't like that," without guilt. "No, I won't do that," without shame. And walk away from conversations, relationships, environments that diminish you. But here's the twist. The moment you start doing this, you will lose people. Some will get angry. Some will call you arrogant. Some will say you've changed. Why? Because your boundaries disrupt their comfort. They were used to feeding off your compliance. They liked the version of you that bent, folded, smiled no matter what. That version served them. This one, the real you, makes them uncomfortable. Let them go. Because on the other side of that shedding are people who won't just like you, they'll respect you. They'll trust your yes because they've seen you say no. They'll know your kindness is real because it's not a performance, it's a choice. And you'll feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Wholeness. No more splitting yourself into fragments to be accepted. No more swallowing your voice to keep the peace. No more pretending that being ignored doesn't hurt. You'll begin to move through the world, not as a man hoping to be liked, but as one who knows what he's worth. You'll notice it in small things. You'll walk differently, more rooted. You'll speak with fewer words, but more gravity. You'll listen not to respond, but to discern. You'll stop chasing and start choosing. Because once you impose your presence, not with force, but with clarity, you stop living on other people's terms, and that is when everything begins to change. So if you've spent years wondering, why don't they respect me? Maybe it's time to stop asking them and start asking yourself, when did I stop respecting me? So maybe you've accepted it now. Being liked is not the same as being respected, and that realization cuts deep because it means you've been playing the wrong game for most of your life. But here's where many men go wrong next. Once they feel the pain of not being respected, they swing to the other extreme. They become cold, harsh, dismissive. They confuse power with aggression. They start acting like the very people who once hurt them. It's understandable, but it's not the answer. Because turning your back on empathy doesn't make you strong. It just makes you bitter. And bitterness is just woundedness wearing armor. The real transformation comes not from becoming a jerk, but from becoming whole. And wholeness means this: you can say no with calm. You can set a boundary without yelling. You can walk away without needing to destroy anything on your way out. The weak man seeks control through domination. The strong man doesn't need to dominate. He just doesn't compromise on his self-worth. There's a line, quiet, invisible, that lives in every truly grounded person. You feel it when they speak. You sense it when they enter a room. You know instantly. This is someone who knows where they stand and won't move just to please you. That's not arrogance. That's not coldness. That's alignment. And here's the crazy part. The moment you stop trying so hard to be liked, people actually start gravitating toward you. Why? Because certainty is magnetic. People are starving for clarity, for someone who knows who they are and doesn't flinch when challenged. But how do you get there? How do you shift from being the over-accommodating ghost to the grounded presence people actually respect? It starts with one brutally honest step. Stop betraying yourself to protect others. You already know what this looks like. You say sure when you want to say I don't have capacity. You laugh when something offends you. You compliment people you secretly don't trust. You listen to people who never ask how you're doing. Each time your nervous system registers it, another micro-abandonment, another moment where you traded inner truth for external comfort. But it doesn't have to stay this way. You can begin to reclaim yourself in small, deliberate actions. Pause before responding. Ask, is this true for me? Say, let me think about it, instead of instantly agreeing. Allow yourself to sit in someone else's disappointment and survive it. Because the man who can't be disliked will always be manipulated, but the man who can is free. So no, you don't need to become an asshole to be respected. You just need to stop living in fear of being misunderstood. Let your yes mean yes. Let your no mean no. Let your presence say what your words used to try so hard to explain. You're not here to be liked by everyone. You're here to live in integrity with the truth that's been buried beneath all your apologies. And once you do that, not with arrogance, but with clarity, respect won't be something you chase. It'll be something you embody. There's a new kind of man emerging. Not the one who plays nice to be accepted, not the one who fights everyone to feel powerful, but the one who's learned to stand quietly, fully, in himself. He knows that bondade não é submissão, e que presença não é grito. He's kind because he chooses to be, not because he fears the alternative. He listens deeply, but not to be liked. He gives, but not until he's empty. He helps, but never at the cost of his clarity, because he's learned something most never do. The world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs men who can hold tension between compassion and clarity, softness and strength, and that balance. It's not something you're born with. It's something you forge in fire, in failure, in silence. It begins when you stop reacting, when you stop editing yourself to be accepted, when you stop treating your own needs like they're in the way. And that balance, it's not something you're born with. It's something you forge in fire, in failure, in silence. It begins when you stop reacting, when you stop editing yourself to be accepted, when you stop treating your own needs like they're in the way. That's the cost of fake harmony. But there's another way, a new code, where your kindness is backed by steel, where your presence is rooted, not performed, where you show up fully, but never beg to be seen. In this new code, you speak less, but say more. You stop performing and start being. You stop living on the edge of others' approval and start building from the core of your own truth. And when that shift happens, people notice. Some will fall away, confused, maybe offended. Let them. Others will be drawn in, not by charm, not by performance, but by the quiet gravity of a man who knows who he is. Your boundaries will be felt before they're spoken. You'll walk differently, not faster, not louder, just clearer. Your relationships will deepen, not by trying harder, but by leaking less. Your solitude won't feel like loneliness. It'll feel like restoration. And most importantly, you'll stop fearing yourself. You'll stop fearing your anger because it won't control you. You'll stop fearing rejection because losing people who don't honor your truth is actually freedom. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming real. Because the most dangerous man is not the one who dominates. It's the one who stands rooted, even when the room pulls away. So here's the code, simple, but not easy. Be kind, but never to the point of self-erasure. Be honest, even when your voice shakes. Be grounded, even when the world pushes back. Be open, but don't bleed for those who can't hold your heart. Because when your no carries the same integrity as your yes, you stop chasing respect, you embody it. And when you walk with both warmth and weight, you don't just earn respect, you awaken it.